What if we get to the NFL draft and we get to the first round and all of a sudden all the quarterbacks fall off the board, go into the second round? We're wondering what's going on, and now the first round of the NFL draft is looking totally different compared to what everybody else was predicting. We've seen quarterbacks fall out of the first round before. Recently, Will Levis. Recently, Malik Willis. We've seen some other quarterbacks like Matt Corral, and so on down the line that was traditionally mocked in the first round, that had a lot of hype with them, fall out of the first round. So there is a chance that that could happen in this year's draft. I'm not predicting it, but what we're doing here on this channel is we're trying to break the draft. We're doing mock drafts, and we're setting up these scenarios to see what it could potentially look like. What could it look like if Deion Sanders was the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys and he traded up to get Shedeur? What does it look like if the quarterbacks did fall? A lot of people who have their teams drafting early don't want these quarterbacks, and they're saying their team's not drafting a quarterback, because I've done a lot of these mock drafts and I've read the comments. Today, we're breaking the draft. We're letting these quarterbacks fall. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now, because we're breaking the NFL draft one mock draft at a time to learn more about the NFL draft and how it could potentially flow when it comes draft time. Click that button. Stop missing out. We are on the clock with the Tennessee Titans, and we cannot go quarterback here. No Cam Ward, no Shedeur Sanders, no funny business at the quarterback position. We got some good players on the board, and one of my favorite players is looking at them in the face right now. Abdul Carter, come on down. We're going to the Titans, and I think that's an easy pick for them to make. The Browns are now on the clock. You got Travis Hunter, which when I look at the Browns, possibly, I keep going down here looking at the player lists. I think going Will Campbell, getting a tackle to whatever quarterback you have back there, just getting more bodies on that offensive line is really going to help you out. I think Will Campbell is going to be a get, and in this scenario, he's definitely climbing the board. The Giants are on the clock right now. Offensive line is a huge issue, and I think I talk about their offensive line every year. Looking at the tackles on the board, for this to happen, there has to be a run at the tackle spot. That is for sure. For that to happen in real life, the quarterback's falling into the second round, we have to have a run at the tackle position. Potentially, Kelvin Banks comes off the board here for the Giants. Or they take a look at Travis Hunter. They pull the trigger on that. Or they go somewhere else. We could go Mason Graham, Will Johnson. We got some options here. We're in New York. Let's pull the trigger on Travis Hunter right here. Number 3 overall off the board. Not the sexiest. Patriots are on the clock. Last time we drafted T-Mac. About half the time we're pulling T-Mac to the Patriots. I think this time we're going to stay away. It is a position of need. Offensive line is too. Getting weapons for Drake May is a huge need for this team. Of course, whenever you get a first-round quarterback with some promise, that's what you're going to do. However, when you're looking at what's left on the board here, I might just have to pull that. I might just have to pull that for him, because we already are looking at tackle off the board here, which is not a bad look for the Patriots. Not a bad look. Honestly, when you look at what they got at wide receiver, I think we just have to go back at T-Mac again. I think that is the player I'm going to pull for the Patriots. That's who's coming off the board. I'm looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars. I've mocked Travis Hunter to the Jaguars a lot. And we got Mason Graham on the board. Will Johnson, DB, interior defensive line. Starks is on the board. Starks has fallen in a lot of my mock drafts here. We're going to pull the trigger on him. We're going to make that selection. Now we're looking at the Raiders. They got a lot of needs. I did draft Ashton Jeanty to the Raiders before. I think that's a little bit of a reach. Even though it's a huge need, it's a deep running back class. I just do not see that being a great look for them. I think Luther Burden's in the mix according to the needs they got. I think when you're thinking about this team and you're thinking about what's on the board on the offensive side of the ball, what's on the board on the defensive side of the ball, I think Will Johnson coming on down at the cornerback position, I think that is just going to be a smart look for them. Not super sexy, just okay. We're looking at the Jets, interior defensive line, DB, edge, all that stuff. Quarterback, maybe. Wide receiver, maybe not, depending on what happens with these veteran wide receivers. More than likely, things are going to stay sticky there and stay the same. Mason Graham, come on down to the Jets. Not super sexy, but we're good to go there. Just getting another plug and play for the interior. The Panthers are on the clock. And we're looking at defense here according to the team needs of PFF. That being said, we're going on down the board. We got a young quarterback. Tackle, I don't know. Usually interior offensive line. I bet you some of these guys are going to start jumping the board here for this site. I bet you that's going to happen. We're looking at corner. My man Benjamin Morrison is going to start jumping the board a little bit more. He's up a spot in the rankings. I see that. We're looking at some more players here. At safety, Xavier Watts, safety gets bare. Safety gets very bare. So I can definitely see Starks going early due to that. That's holding true. Grant's on the board. If you're looking interior defensive line, looking linebacker, Jalen Walker. Just adding him to the mix. Just getting that talent. So looking at him versus the field here, you got Luther Burden. You can add more wide receivers to this team. You just drafted a wide receiver in the first round. I just don't see it happening. I see them bringing in another veteran. Jalen Walker, Simmons. We got a cluster of guys here. I think tight end, they got a good one last year that was doing some things on the field this year. I think Jalen Walker might be the reach here that could give him some value considering what's on the board. We're not trading back or anything because that would turn this video into a 3-hour video. But now the Saints are on the clock. Luther Burden seems like a good investment for this team right now. But I've mocked him a few times. And if you follow the channel, if I start mocking a guy too much to a spot, I start switching it up because we can be fluid here. Defensive line is something to look at. You can also look at pass rush as well, as you always can use an extra guy there for a blow. That way, when you're deep into the game, you can always use that extra pass rusher to keep going. And then eventually contracts are going to happen. And if things are working out with your young guy, he's your new guy to be your starter. I want to do something different. I like Tyler Warren a lot. I see him jump in the ranks here. It was a little bit further down the list. Tight end could be a good spot for him on this team. Get them a good pass catcher. Let's go with that. Let's break this draft. Tyler Warren is probably going to get some hype this draft season. And it looks like PFF is giving that to him because he's jumped the rankings. We're looking at the Bears. I saw a mock where Ashton Jeanty went to the Bears. I just don't see that happening. I see them trying to moneyball that position a little bit more. Edge, tackle, Josh Simmons. A very nasty offensive lineman coming back from that knee issue. I see this being an okay get. Calvin Banks, either one of those two. Let's just go Simmons. Let's just say they ignore the knee. They go offensive tackle. We're going to keep our quarterback upright. We're going to try our best to do so. So middle of the year, early in the year, we'll be back. We'll get him going probably in 2026 as a full-time starter maybe, or maybe sooner than that. But you got some talent there at the tackle spot. Niners are on the board here. Tackle is a look for them. Defensive line. And we got a little tackle run. Now that one just went off the board right in front of them. So they're probably going to run to the podium and get Calvin Banks. They're probably going to do that. That leaves the Cowboys on the board. Ashton Jeanty just seems like the easy pick to make here. But we're going to go a little bit different because everyone's making that move in their mocks. And we've done that in our early mocks. And we've been trying to break the Dallas Cowboys. But at 12 overall, wide receiver. You were rolling out Brandon Cooks at the end of the year. He got hurt, impacted the offense. Luther Burden's there. And he's got high PFF grades when it comes for separation against man coverage, zone, and everything else. Production-wise, you wish there was a little bit more. It's also Mizzou. But this guy was a big-time talent early in his career, coming out of high school. Come on down to the Dallas Cowboys. We're adding some goods to the passing game. Now we're with the Dolphins. We know Ashton Jeanty's not coming on down. But we do have my man Benjamin Morrison. I believe he's going to be a riser. He's one of my favorite players in this draft. I like him at value. We're going to keep looking down here. Cam Ward, ranked 17. Michael Williams, Kenneth Grant. Just looking at this team. What could these guys go with? I think this is a good time to go rogue a little bit. Let's get some pass rush. We can move guys around. We can get blows. But that being said, I think that's going to be a good get. And I feel like he's going to be a riser later in the draft. Colts are on the board. A lot of people are mocking tight end to the Colts. We got Nick Sorton there on edge. Edge has been going light in this draft. That's not a normal thing. So I see that going strong. Scorton, Stewart's, one of the Tamu boys. Jack Sawyer has been climbing the ranks. He was ranked in the second round right before the last Ohio State game. James Pierce fell a little bit. He's one of my guys. I feel like he's getting slept on a bit. Let's go with Scorton coming on down to the Colts. Falcons are on the clock here. They're saying wide receivers a team need here. But I feel like we got some pass catchers still available on the team. I feel like Drake London and company is going to be all right to the point where they don't have to really stretch it out for a wide receiver right now. And I think pass rush is going to be an edge rusher or a linebacker is going to be something to go after. Linebacker's kind of dead right now. Looking at edge, that is a position that's a little bit deeper. It's a little bit of a reach according to the rankings. But you got Shamar Stewart, Jack Sawyer, and James Pierce. What if they started listening to me, watching the channel, and they're like, yeah, James Pierce. Start looking at Tennessee tape. I believe he is going to be rising the rank soon. His ADP is higher than his rank. That's another key there. Let's go with James Pierce here. Let's go rogue a little bit. We're breaking the draft. We're not trying to be right. We're trying to break it, get a new flow. Cardinals are on the clock. I saw a TikTok review on the Cardinals saying that them drafting Tyler Warren was a good pick, but for some reason they do not understand that they got Trey McBride. Ashton Jeanty's available. However, they're jacked at running back. Emeka Egbuka's available. Could we double up on Ohio State wide receivers? Could we do that? Go back-to-back years on Ohio State wide receivers. Emeka Egbuka's rising the rankings too. That's something to notice. Tackle, defensive line. Going back to the tackle spot here, seeing what's available. An offensive tackle. We got the Missouri kid. We got Josh Connerly and Wyatt Millen. So we do have some talent available to look at here at the spots when we're looking at that. When we're looking at defensive line, throw in edge and D-line with that. What do we have available here? Because if an edge falls to you, it's always solid. You're looking at Kenneth Grant on the board for the Cardinals. Not the sexiest pick, but let's roll with that for this mock, and let's see how that looks. Emeka Egbuka's falling to the Cincinnati Bengals. I've mocked him to the Bengals a few times, and looking at wide receivers to the Bengals, it's easy to address. In this scenario, let's just say T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are there. They were able to get the deal done. And now we're looking at defensive line, guard, other positions of need, maybe pass rush. We got Shamar Stewart there. We do have Armand from Missouri. Let's draft him. Let's get some more bodies on the offensive line. That has been the meme for the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's just get more bodies on this team. Let's just get more talent on the offensive line. We're worried about where to put them later. But at value right now, considering how the draft is going, we're feeling good at wide receiver. Let's just make that move. Whether that's going to happen or not, we don't know. And honestly, if value falls to them, they'll double up on a position like most teams. Now we're looking at the Seattle Seahawks. Offensive line, edge, linebacker. Offensive line, edge, linebacker. That's what it's saying. Tackles the spot. But what if we go D-line, get more bodies, or we get one of these edge rushers. We got Stewart coming down the board. We got Jack Sawyer. Let's roll with Stewart. No, let's say Jack Sawyer does really well in the national championship game. Let's say he gets a couple sacks, another big play. He rises boards. Now he's with the Seattle Seahawks. Let's do that. That's what happens in this scenario. This mock's getting crazy. I can't wait to see the comments. So, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I have been drafting Benjamin Morrison to them a lot, and I feel like he's fallen too far down the board. But he's going to have to stay today because I can't keep drafting him to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I just can't keep doing it. So, linebacker, DB. Let's look at linebacker. Next guy, Jihad Campbell. A little bit of a reach. Let's go defensive line, Tyleik Williams. It's always good getting fresh bodies. It's always good having fresh bodies. There it is, they're big bodies. You need talent, contracts later on down the road, everything else. Looking at edge, Shamar Stewart's on the board right now. I think that's what we're going to roll with. That is what we're rolling with. The Broncos are on the clock. The one thing about the Broncos is we got a young quarterback. We need to get things to help our young quarterback to really develop. We got a tight end available. We got one of the top ones. Wide receiver, we got one available. Mika Egbuka. We got a top running back. Who are we going to draft here? We got our top running back. We got a good wide receiver. We're in a dilemma, and we know right behind us, the teams need both positions, a lot of them. So whoever we get, we're going to really hurt one of these teams. Like the Steelers right behind them. They need a running back. George Pickens ain't been looking too hot right now. The Chargers could use another running back. I don't think J.K. Dobbins is going to hold up for many more years. The Packers, they can go by a little bit longer without drafting a running back. Wide receiver, they might be all right. They could go other positions. The Vikings, I think running back might be an answer for them, but probably later in the draft. Texans might be looking wide receiver. So this is a big pick for them. Running back is deeper in this draft. You can get a good running back in the second round, third round of this draft. Wide receiver, I can't really say the same thing. Of this draft. And Mika Egbuka, he can come in day one, and he can really compete for snaps and routes and develop and blossom with this team. Let's roll with him to the Denver Broncos. I don't even think I've ever seen him mocked there before. And now the Steelers are running to the podium, and they're going to run and get Ashton Jeanty. They're just going to do that. They're going to make it happen. They lost Najee Harris. They got one of the top players falling to them down the board. It's a deep running back class, but they have to get their first round running back. They want to play Steelers football. Here you go. The Chargers are on the clock, and they got a lot of team needs here. But we're going to get our man, his tight end. He can't fall off the board too much longer. Colston Loveland. I can't have him falling into the second round here. And we need to get more weapons in the passing game. We really want to be able to push it vertical. Plus, we got Harbaugh drafting a Michigan kid. It's just a good storyline to roll with. Packers are on the clock. We're looking at what's available here. DB is a position of need per PFF. We got Benjamin Morrison. I'm high on him. And we're just going to click that button. For the Packers, they got themselves a deal. Usually, in my mocks, he goes higher. So to me, that's a pretty good deal. Vikings are on the clock right now. Running back might be an issue here in the next few years. And Cam Akers as a backup's not going to hold up. And a trend in this league, through a small sample, is having your starting running back. And then on top of that, having a guy drafted. We saw that with the Cardinals and Rams. And just mix them in a little bit until it's time to move on. We haven't got to those times with those teams, but that's what it kind of indicates there. And with the Panthers, it looks like we're going to start that route, but we got to see how that ACL holds up. That being said, Marion Hampton for the future, because what else is left on the board? Defensive line, you got Tyleik Williams. So that is saying, hey, Bruce, slow down. Slow down. Tyleik Williams is on the board. You got a deep running back class. Walk it back. You got some corners on the board. Walk that one back. Let's go with Tyleik Williams to the Vikings. Let's get some interior on the defensive line. Let's not get too sexy now. The wide receiver spot on the draft right now isn't super deep. There's some guys to look at here. The Texans probably patched this up via free agency in this mock. And we got to look at edge and defensive line. We got to look at the defensive side of the ball. We got to get some pressure here. We got to see what's going on. That is one of the listed team needs here. We got some guys here that were higher on the board about a week and a half ago that the PFF rankings dropped. They dropped in their rankings. ADP is around the 34 range, we're around the 25 range. However, we have some deals at the cornerback spot. Barron's on the board. I like him a lot. It's always good to have depth there. When you're looking at wide receiver, Matthew Golden is now into the mix. I'm not really in love with that. I also like Trey Amos. When I'm also looking at the interior offensive line, there's a spot where you can get a little sexy. They're down the board a bit. So how about tackle? How about tackle for value? Is anybody there? We got Josh Connerly right there. That's a guy we could potentially look at. I think here you stack up more talent at DB and you keep it moving, considering the values we have on the board. And I'm just going to go with one of my guys, Trey Amos here. I'm just going to pull that off the trigger right now. And now we're going to the Rams. Tight end, tackle, linebacker, cornerback. So in my mind, when I look at what's on the board right now, cornerback or tackle, what are we going to roll with here? I think Josh Connerly coming off the board, keep Matthew Stafford upright, getting more bodies on the offensive line, getting more talent. I think we're going to rock with that. Now we got the Washington Commanders up. We got edge. Let's look at edge again. Let's look at what's available there on the edge, because this is a good spot to pull on the edge here. Landon Jackson's there. Prince is there. We got some bodies there. And we can reach on that. I don't really agree with what PFF has on these players. I feel like they could go a little bit higher. Cornerback, though, is stacked right now. We let it get stacked. We have Barron on the board. And we're going to rock that. We're going to rock that. I think that's a good deal. Now we're looking at the Ravens. Wide receiver, edge, tackle, cornerback. Cornerback is still available. And we're looking at that. We have some good values there. And that's probably where they're probably going to look at. They're probably going to look at with the batch of guys available. And we're going to look at the ECU kid right now. But before we do, I'm going to go back to the edge, because there were some values there to look at. And then go back to tackle. Offensive tackle, Wyatt Millen from West Virginia. ADP of 25. I'm higher than 35 than what they got ranked. I like them, especially with positional need here, or positional value instead of need, positional value. I got them ahead of cornerbacks in this range. I think this could be a very stable get. Come on down. Now we're looking at the Buffalo Bills. Interior defensive line, linebacker, cornerback. This is time to pull up on that ECU cornerback, because we're getting him at a value. The Eagles are on the clock. Wide receiver, guard, edge, cornerback. Going over here to the edges and just looking at what's available. Landon Jackson, come on down. However, let's check out tight end. Let's go with tight end, because we did experience some injuries at tight end this year. We may want to look at the talent here that's available. And honestly, I think Harold Fanning is going to be a riser. I think he's going to be a riser. I think he's going to work his way into the first round. Maybe early second. I think he's going to be a huge riser in this year's draft. I think when we come to the Senior Bowl, we're going to be looking at him in these drafts. Looking at the Eagles here. Just looking at the interior offensive line. Tyler Booker. We're deep into the second. I think that'd be too much of a reach. So here we go. Cornerback. Cornerback's getting zapped. The positions are drying up. You're like, I don't see him drafting this position. I don't see him drafting this position. Honestly, if we're holding put with no trades, they're going to go different positions you're not going to like with some of these teams. You look at linebacker. Jihad Campbell's available. I think that's a solid get for anybody, especially at this part of the draft. ADP is a little bit higher than the ranking. Chiefs are now on the clock. Tackle, D-line, linebacker. Things are getting very thin. We got some options here. TJ Sanders has been falling down the rankings. I think this could be a good option for the Chiefs on the defensive side of the ball. Let's pull that up. And that defense is getting nastier. Now we're looking at the Detroit Lions. Marion Hampton's falling into the second round. He could have went to the Chiefs. We decided not to do so. We don't need wide receiver. We're looking at some of the top guys available. Walter Nolan just looks like he could be a Detroit Lion. We're looking at the edge at Prince. I think Prince is a good pull here. He just seems like a guy that's going to eat some kneecaps. We're looking at the mock draft here. I've earned an award, which is solid because we're mocking all the time here. So the quarterbacks, if you remember right, fall out of the first round of the draft. This is how things could be shaken up. The player pool at edge and offensive tackle just starts running rampant. And that really makes things a lot harder in the back end of the draft with no trades. So in a real draft, I see a lot of trading back and guys trading up back into the draft in the back end of the first round. I see a lot of movement in this draft. I definitely see that happening. And I see edge, linebacker, tackle drying up fast. I see wide receiver, like always, drying up fast. I see some players rising, falling down the board a little bit more. Cornerback gets heavier in the later part of the first round. That makes sense considering we're going to have a run on edge and tackle. If this happens, this could be a good look. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next video.